Welcome to Mamahood After Trauma, where healing and mamahood intersect. I'm Emily, your host. Join us as we discover practical strategies to nurture ourselves with kindness and understanding. Stay tuned for insights and inspiration to support you on your path of healing and growth. Let's dive in together. This is Mamahood After Trauma. Hey, sweet mama. Welcome back to the Mamahood After Trauma Symposium. I am so thrilled that you have taken some time out of your busy mama schedule to tune in and listen. Today, I bring to you the replay of Sasia Lyle's talk from the Mamahood After Trauma Symposium that happened in November of 2024. Sasha is a simplicity strategist who helps overwhelmed preschool moms in high-pressure careers clear the clutter so they can reclaim their time and energy and find joy even in life's busiest seasons. She believes deeply in nervous system health as a pillar of flourishing and credits this inner healing with supporting her recovery from addiction, depressive disorders, and anxiety disorders. Recognizing that internal and external cues signal the brain's stress response, Sasha developed a unique approach to decluttering called the fire flower method. This method holistically blends her expertise as a therapist with a feminist perspective to guide moms in creating a haven in their homes and shifting the internalized beliefs that erode their confidence and self-worth. Focusing on self-compassion, she aims to empower moms to cultivate deep fulfillment by letting go of learned stories of who they are, who they're meant to be, and that their happiness lies on the other side of being, quote unquote, fixed. I thoroughly enjoyed what Sasha had to say at the symposium, and I think you will too. So tune in, maybe grab a notebook because trauma recovery and decluttering are more related and connected than you might think. Enjoy, mama.
Hello, and welcome to this online masterclass, Nervous System Reset, the healing power of decluttering on a trauma-impacted nervous system. I am Sasia Lyle. I am a therapist who supports female entrepreneurs with littles in releasing their physical and emotional clutter and liberating themselves from the socially conditioned expectations that keep them playing small. I am so passionate about helping women rewire their brains from the limiting beliefs that keep them questioning their worth and chasing after external validation so that they can create capacity and confidence to level up in life and in business. So I'm so excited to be here today. You might be thinking, what is a clutter coach doing at a trauma symposium? And if this is a thought that you are having right now, then I'm so glad you're here. This is exactly where you need to be. This training is for you if you want to help your nervous system regulate more effectively, boost the healing potential of the tools that you're already using in your healing journey, and reduce the stress that you are experiencing outside of and in addition to the specific individual trauma triggers. That is where traditional therapy kind of stops. So I'd love to share this quote from Peter Walsh, who is an Australian American professional organizer and writer. I love his definition of clutter, which is anything that stands between you and the life you want to be living. And to me, this exemplifies why decluttering belongs in the conversation at a trauma symposium. So let's talk a little bit more about what we can expect today. We will talk about the impact of a cluttered environment, how decluttering supports post-traumatic growth and healing, and some small steps that you can take today to create a space that better supports your nervous system and helps you maximize on the recovery process. So let's start by talking about the impact of clutter. It is generally disruptive. It makes it harder to find things. You have less space to do things. It wastes money if you're buying duplicates or you're just not using things because you have too much stuff to use and only 24 hours in a day. It might be impacting your social life if you would like to have people over and you feel embarrassed about your space or uncomfortable about inviting people in. Or even if your space is pretty organized and you're pretty put together, if it feels like it's just going to take too much work to prep, then you might be not having people over or extending those invites because it just feels like too much work. It's also impairing your ability to apply the tools that you're learning in your healing journey because it is impacting your nervous system. So it's creating this low level of activation that's kind of always there, and your brain is designed to assess for immediate threat. So it is going to activate that system anytime that we're in an environment where it requires evaluating, which is pretty much all the time. Our brain is just designed to constantly be looking to make sure that we don't die. So when you have a cluttered environment, it causes your brain to have to work harder to assess for danger because there's more things it has to filter through to assess if the situation is safe or not. And we know that this has an impact on women in particular because women who identify as living in a cluttered home actually have higher levels of cortisol. So the stress hormone is a lot more elevated in them. And this means that their parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest system, is actually not kicking in the way it's supposed to. It is not down regulating. Your system is not shutting down or slowing down adequately if you are experiencing an elevated level of cortisol. So when you don't get that shutdown like you need to on the somatic level, on this very basic level, then you're feeling exhausted. You're drained all the time. You're cranky and irritable with the people around you. You snap really easily. You get frustrated by the littlest things. You're really forgetful. Your brain just doesn't feel like it's working right. You can't remember where your keys are. You don't know why you walked into this room that you just like walked over to 10 seconds ago. So these are all side effects of having a nervous system that is just on overload. It's just fried, and that's because you're asking too much of it. It's getting too much input all the time. And this is a hard thing to avoid in our very hectic schedules and our very busy lives, which is why it's so important that we create spaces in our homes that give us the respite from the stimulation that we're experiencing everywhere else. There are also long-term impacts on our health when we are living in a cluttered environment or experiencing situations where our sympathetic nervous system just stays activated. And this puts you at elevated risk for chronic sleep problems, high blood pressure, clogged arteries, which can translate then to heart attack risk and stroke risk, anxiety, depression, addiction, obesity. There's a lot of outcomes that we want to try to mitigate the risk to as much as we can. And decluttering can be really powerful for that. It is a great way to support your nervous system and just make your daily life better. It's not going to prevent or cure your medical ailments, but it does give you an edge. And why wouldn't we want to give ourselves every advantage possible in this stressful, chaotic world that we live in? Excuse me. So, today I want to share with you pieces of the framework that I developed to help women maximize on the benefits of decluttering. I was not seeing anyone pulling together the trauma informed lens that I was really adept in as a therapist with the strategies that are really heavily taught and relied on to remove physical items from your home. So, because I was not seeing the integration and it seemed so obvious to me that they belong together, I created a framework to help other women integrate these things too. So, pillar one is somatics, pillar two is emotional and cognition, and pillar three is our physical decluttering. And I believe and teach that we can access the physical decluttering and do that process so much more easily and quickly, effectively when we are really paying attention to our body, making sure that our nervous system is well regulated and that we have the tools to support ourselves both on a somatic level and a cognitive level by understanding the roots of our clutter, understanding the thought process that's making it difficult to let go. And once we have those pieces in place, then we can more easily release our physical clutter. So maybe by now, hopefully, you've bought in to the idea that it's important that we assess our environment and that we try to streamline when possible. So I want to just caution against a common mistake that I see at this point. So it is so very normal and so very human that as soon as we identify an area of our life that we want to improve on or something that we think could benefit us to change, we want to just rush right away to fix it all. We want to just like overhaul the whole thing and like blow up the existing system so that we can just start from scratch and build it all up perfectly, right? And I want to really encourage you to think about how you are missing out by doing that. When we are in a rush to fix things, then we kind of lose the real power and the real magic behind decluttering in this way. So, what I want to encourage you to do instead is to focus on how you want to feel in the process along the way. Because decluttering like this isn't really about what you're creating externally. That is definitely a piece of it. And what I think is so powerful about this approach is that when you create the environment that supports your nervous system, then you feel more regulated and you feel better, and it gives you more motivation and energy and ability to maintain that system. So it's this really beautiful reciprocal relationship. But the more important reciprocal relationship is the one with yourself. This process is how you help yourself with learning how to interact in a different way by removing that shame, removing that judgment, bringing in that self compassion, bringing in that curiosity. You are going to create a whole different experience of your life. So, let's talk about 3 ways that you can get started and make an impact in your home this week. A quote that I really want to share with you that has been so powerful for me that I reference often in my self coaching is that the difference between something and nothing is everything. This is a quote from Cara Lowenthal, and she teaches amazing work on feminist theory. I love her approach. I love her information. So this was something that really stuck out to me because women are so conditioned to believe that only big change matters, that it doesn't count if it's not a massive transformation. But if you do one thing differently today, then you've made progress. If you do one thing differently this week, you've made progress. If you listen to this training 2 years from now and you take an action on it, you made progress. Like it all counts. Everything counts. I love to say, like, if you declutter one pair of socks that has holes in it, you decluttered, you made progress. Like, celebrate that and lean into that instead of holding yourself to these unrealistic expectations and standards that really just make you not want to even approach doing the thing. So, pillar 1 of the Fire Flower framework is the somatic pillar. And I want to introduce you to the square scan sound technique. So, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through the physical process of applying this technique. But if you want to see it in action, ask me about it in the Q&A. I'm happy to go through it with you and share it there. But the square scan sound technique asks that when you go into a space that you want to declutter, you start with a round of square breathing, and then you do a body scan to see what's happening with your body. Let's just notice how we're physically responding to the space we want to declutter. If we're feeling activated, or in the body scan, we're finding places of tension or discomfort, then we want to try cultivating some relaxation by using our breath to move air and energy to the areas that are feeling tense, tight, uncomfortable. And while we're doing that, we can bring in the sound element by offering a calming mantra. I personally like to use things like I feel calm, I feel peaceful, I feel safe, I feel supported, I feel protected, things of that nature. So after we've gone through the process of the square scan sound, then we do another body scan to just kind of see where we are now. Has anything shifted? Are we feeling better? What's going on with our body at this point? And if you're still feeling activated or feeling uncomfortable, you can repeat this technique another time or two. If you're feeling good in your body and you feel like you're ready to go declutter, then go forth and declutter away. But if you're still feeling activated after you've tried this technique a couple of times, then this is where we cultivate that new relationship with ourselves and we don't ask ourselves to do it. We don't force ourselves to do it. We don't push ourselves to do something we don't feel comfortable doing. This is your body telling you this does not feel safe. This does not feel okay. So we stop at this point. Then we don't declutter in that space. We're going to pick another area to try, and then we're going to repeat this technique in another area. Square, scan, sound. Use the sound as needed. Definitely do the square and the scan and see how it feels in a different space. So we want to just keep this going until we find a space that feels somatically accessible, that feels okay to our body to start decluttering in. The second pillar of the Fire Flower framework is the emotional and the cognitive pillar. So what I want to introduce you to here is this concept of feed the feeling. So if it's feeling hard to you to let go of a specific item, I want to encourage you to ask yourself, what does keeping this item allow me to think, feel, or believe? When we're having a hard time letting go, it's often because we've unconsciously associated this thing with permission to believe a specific thing about ourselves or about someone else, or there's a reason that we're holding on to it. So dig in a little bit, ask yourself with curiosity and compassion, what do I think I get to believe if I hold on to this? And then once you've identified that thought, I want you to ask your brain to find you 3 pieces of evidence to support that belief that have nothing to do with the thing. So if we can really identify what we believe is on the other side of hanging on to this thing, and we can show our brain that we don't actually need to hold on to this thing to believe that thought, then it makes letting it go so much easier. Finally, pillar 3 is the physical decluttering. So when we're ready to physically declutter a space, I recommend picking one small space to start with and then just micro picking even smaller spaces within that space. So my suggestion is always to start in the bedroom because women are really conditioned to believe that our value and our worth rests on how well we take care of everyone around us, that we end up falling into this pattern of constantly putting ourselves last, saying we'll get to it, we'll get to it, we'll get to it, but we never actually have enough energy to take care of ourselves appropriately when we put ourselves at the bottom of the list continuously. So you deserve more than whatever is left over after you've taken care of everyone else. Start with this one piece of prioritization of yourself, and you can start to literally rewire your brain to put you higher on the priority list, and you start to think of your self-worth in a different way. So I want to encourage you to assess the availability in your nervous system of starting in the bedroom and try to make that your primary focus if you can. As you're starting in there, focus on the floor first and just focus on getting rid of the garbage. That's all you need to do to start making progress. So that is one step that I would encourage you to take today. Thank you so much. That's all I have for you right now. There's obviously so much more that I would love to cover in this, but we have time constraints. So if you're interested in diving deeper, I will invite you to head over to my webpage and grab my freebie. It's a fireflowerbloom.com/declutter challenge. This is a 7-day challenge that goes deep into how to declutter the bedroom specifically. So if this is something that resonated with you, that will be a valuable next step for you. I hope you got so much out of our time together. I can't wait to support you more in simplifying your life and really amplifying your ability to take the work you're already doing even deeper and make that impact even stronger. So I hope you have a lot of questions for me. I can't wait to talk to you in the Q&A. And if you ever need anything, feel free to reach out to me. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tune in to this episode of the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. If you would like more of the Mamahood After Trauma community, make sure to look in the description of this episode for the link to become a Mamahood After Trauma Inner Circle member. Until next time, Mama, keep